rotors of the sleek black helicopter stood still on the rooftop helipad of Titan Aerospace, gleaming under the noon sun. A group of executives gathered around, restless, as the company's powerful CEO, Victoria Lane, clicked her heels across the concrete. "We have a board meeting in 30 minutes, she snapped. "Why is this bird still dead?" The engineers exchanged nervous glances. "Ma'am, the system just crashed. The diagnostics aren't responding." Victoria crossed her arms and let out a sharp sigh. "Pathetic," she muttered. Down below, in the maintenance area, a janitor named Ethan Cole mopped the hallway quietly, his worn uniform stained but clean. He'd worked there for just 6 months, always humble, always polite. When the intercom crackled with an emergency maintenance request for the rooftop, he grabbed his toolkit, not because it was his job, but because curiosity and a love for machines ran deep in his blood. As he arrived at the helipad, security tried to block him. "Authorized personnel only," one guard barked, but Ethan's calm tone cut through. "Just let me take a look. Maybe I can help." Victoria turned, eyeing him with disbelief. "You," she said, her voice dripping with sarcasm. "You're a janitor, not an engineer." Ethan shrugged slightly. "I used to fix engines before I cleaned floors." Laughter broke out among the executives. "Oh, really?" Victoria smirked, stepping closer. "Tell you what, if you can fix this helicopter, I'll kiss you in front of everyone." Her words hung in the air, half joke, half humiliation. The executives chuckled, cameras came out, and Ethan's face reddened, but his eyes remained steady. "Deal," he said softly. He walked toward the helicopter, ignoring the murmurs. Inside the cockpit, the dashboard lights were dead, except for a faint red glow. Ethan's hands moved confidently, checking fuses, wires, and switches. His touch was deliberate, familiar. Memories flickered. The days he used to work as a senior aircraft mechanic before his wife's death forced him to leave everything behind. Now this moment felt like destiny calling him again. He noticed something odd. The power relay had been incorrectly rewired during the last maintenance cycle. "They forced the circuit," he murmured. "No wonder it failed." Victoria leaned against the railing, unimpressed. "Are you done playing?" she mocked. Ethan didn't respond. He found a replacement wire in the emergency kit, stripped it clean, and reconnected it with precision. Then he manually reset the ignition sequence. The system blinked once, then twice. The hum of power returned, soft at first, then stronger. Suddenly the blades began to spin, slicing through the air with rhythmic confidence. Gasps echoed around the rooftop. The once dead helicopter roared back to life. Ethan stepped away calmly, wiping grease from his hands. "You might want to schedule a full diagnostic before flying again," he said. Victoria's confident smile vanished. She stared at the machine, then back at him. How did you do that?" she asked. Ethan's expression remained humble. "It's basic engineering, ma'am. You just had a bad relay." Her pride wavered under the weight of reality. The executives who had laughed minutes ago now looked at Ethan with newfound respect. "Ma'am," said one engineer quietly, "he's right. That was a perfect fix." The CEO stood speechless for a moment, then laughed awkwardly. "Well, Mr. Janitor," she said, forcing a smirk, "I suppose I owe you something." Ethan smiled faintly. "You don't owe me anything," he replied. "Just remember, not everyone in uniform is beneath you." With that, he turned to leave. Victoria watched him walk away, a flicker of guilt rising in her chest. Later that evening, as the helicopter carried her to a conference, she couldn't stop thinking about his words. They echoed louder than the roar of the blades. She had built her empire on control, power, and ego, yet one humble man had dismantled it all in minutes, with grace and skill. Days passed, but Victoria couldn't shake her curiosity. She asked HR for Ethan's file, only to discover something shocking. He wasn't just a janitor. He'd once been a lead aircraft technician for a top defense contractor. His record was spotless until he resigned suddenly 5 years ago. She found one note at the end, left to care for terminally ill spouse. Victoria sat silently, realizing the depth behind his calm demeanor. The man she mocked had more integrity and knowledge than most of her senior staff combined. The next morning, she called him into her office. Ethan entered, still in his janitor uniform, expecting reprimand or dismissal. Instead, she stood and extended her hand. "Mr. Cole," she said softly, "I owe you an apology, and perhaps a job offer." Ethan looked surprised. "Ma'am?" She gestured for him to sit. "Titan Aerospace could use a man like you. I reviewed your history. You've done extraordinary work. If you're willing, I'd like to reinstate you as a senior engineer." Ethan hesitated, his eyes reflecting humility and pain. "I appreciate it, but I didn't fix that helicopter to get something in return." Victoria smiled faintly. "I know. That's exactly why you deserve it." For the first time in years, she felt genuine respect for someone outside her corporate circle. "And as for that, kiss," she added with a half-smile. "Let's call it a gesture of respect instead." Ethan laughed quietly. "Respect is all I need, ma'am." From that day forward, he wasn't just the janitor. He became the company's quiet backbone, mentoring young engineers, improving safety systems, and restoring humanity to a place consumed by ambition. Months later, Titan Aerospace unveiled a new innovation, the Cole Rotor Stabilizer, a design inspired by Ethan's diagnostic method. Victoria gave full credit to him in front of investors. Cameras flashed, and the applause filled the room. But when reporters asked Ethan about his success, he simply said, "I just fixed what was broken." His words weren't just about machines, they were about people too. Victoria understood that now. She had learned that true leadership wasn't measured by power, but by humility. That evening, as the sun set over the city skyline, Victoria stood on the helipad where it all began. The same helicopter now stood gleaming and ready. Ethan approached, holding a small toolbox. "Routine check," he said with a smile. She nodded. "I still remember what I said that day," she admitted. "And I still regret it." Ethan looked at her kindly. "It's in the past. What matters is what we fix afterward." They stood there for a moment in silence, the hum of the city below them, the wind carrying away old pride and replacing it with something purer. Respect. As the rotors started once again, Victoria realized something profound. Sometimes life's greatest lessons don't come from boardrooms or business schools. They come from the people we overlook. The janitor she once mocked had taught her humility, patience, and grace. And though she never gave him that kiss, she gave him something far greater, acknowledgement. Ethan smiled as he watched the helicopter lift into the glowing sky, the reflection of its blades shimmering in his eyes. For him, fixing things wasn't just work, it was redemption.